Some of the Bible's most mysterious kingdoms shaped history, but most people have never heard of them. The Bible is full of kingdoms and cities that played huge roles in the story of God's people. We know about Israel and Judah, but what about Edom, Midian, and Ha-ʿAy? These places appear in Scripture, often in dramatic ways, but today they're almost forgotten. In this video, we're diving into how the Bible describes these kingdoms, the events that happened there, and why their stories matter even today. The kingdom of Edom. The Bible tells us that Edom descended from Esau, Jacob's brother. From the very beginning, Edom's story is tied to conflict with Israel. In Genesis 25, God tells Esau and Jacob that their descendants will be separated, and this sets the stage for centuries of tension. Edom appears frequently in the prophetic books. In Obadiah 1 verse 10-14, the prophet condemns Edom for attacking Israel when Jerusalem was vulnerable, calling their violence and pride a day of the Lord. They weren't just enemies, they were a warning of what happens when a nation turns against God's people. King Saul and later King David also fought against Edom. In 2 Samuel 8 verse 13-14, David conquers Edom, establishing control over their territory. This shows Edom's significance as a strategic and military target. The Bible portrays them as proud, powerful, and sometimes ruthless, but also as part of God's larger plan to guide Israel. Midian is another mysterious kingdom. The Bible describes it as a desert region east of the Gulf of Aqaba. In Exodus 2, Moses flees to Midian after killing an Egyptian, and there he meets Jethro, a Midianite priest. This encounter isn't just a casual meeting, it sets up Moses' future as Israel's deliverer. Midianites also appear in Exodus 7-8, where they are involved in alliances and conflicts with Israel. Numbers 31 tells the story of the Israelites defeating the Midianites in battle, highlighting them as both enemies and part of God's judgment plan. Biblically, Midian represents a place of refuge and growth, as well as a kingdom that challenged Israel's obedience. Its people interact with God's plan in significant ways, reminding readers that even small desert nations play a role in the story of salvation. The city of Ha-ʿAy. Ha-ʿAy is probably the most famous lost city mentioned in the Bible. Joshua 7 verse 8 recounts Israel's attempt to conquer Ha-ʿAy during the campaign in Canaan. The first attack fails because of Achan's sin. He had taken forbidden items from Jericho. God punishes Israel by allowing Ha-ʿAy to defeat them, teaching a lesson about obedience and holiness. The second attack, however, is a total victory. Joshua follows God's instructions, ambushes Ha-ʔay, and destroys it completely. Ha-ʔay becomes a symbol of divine justice and the seriousness of following God's commands. Ha-ʔay's story is short but powerful. It shows how even small cities mattered in God's plan and teaches lessons about sin, leadership, and trust in God. Its destruction is remembered as a turning point for Israel's conquest of Canaan. Even though these kingdoms are central in the Bible, many people today have never heard of them. We know little about their locations, and archaeology hasn't answered every question. How do we understand their importance? And what lessons can we take from them when their physical evidence seems lost? When we look deeper at the Bible's descriptions, we notice some patterns. Conflict and judgment. Both Edom and Ha-ʔay show how God uses nations to teach lessons about pride, obedience, and justice. Refuge and growth. Midian shows that not all interactions with outsiders are hostile. Some kingdoms are places of preparation and divine encounters. Legacy and warning. Prophets often use Edom as a warning to Israel and to future nations about pride and turning against God's plan. These kingdoms weren't just places, they were part of God's storytelling. Each city and kingdom teaches lessons about how nations interact with God, His people, and each other. Even if we can't find them on a modern map, their stories are alive in Scripture. Think about this. A small desert nation like Midian shapes Moses' entire life, and a tiny city like Ha-ʔay teaches Israel and us about obedience and faith. Even Edom, which seems like a proud, hostile neighbor, becomes a key example in prophecy. The Bible isn't just listing kingdoms. It's showing us how history, faith, and God's plan intersect in ways that are still relevant today. Edom, Midian, and Ha-ʔay may be lost to history, but they are never lost in the Bible. These kingdoms shaped the journey of Israel, taught lessons about obedience and pride, and reminded us that every nation, city, and person can play a role in God's plan. By studying them, we see the richness of the biblical story and how even forgotten kingdoms have meaning.